Welcome back to another episode of After the License. I'm your host, Jeff Buettner, and this is the podcast where we help real estate agents build their business. Today, we're going to talk about the math behind online lead generation. In previous episodes this week, we've touched on the importance of tracking numbers and tracking results. We talked about the importance of cost per lead and cost per conversion. Well, in this episode, we're just going to use and break down what is the math, rough estimates behind something like Facebook advertising or Google advertising, why it makes sense, and why you might want to consider it for your business. But first, as always, if you're watching on YouTube, just know you can check us out basically anywhere you get podcasts. And if you're listening to the podcast, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got YouTube-specific trainings and YouTube-specific videos that we don't release to the podcast. So I hear a ton from new agents that they don't love internet leads. They don't like Facebook advertising. They don't like Google ads. And a lot of the biggest complaints are the leads aren't great. The leads aren't great. The leads don't pan out. I don't get a ton of closings. And the reality is with internet lead generation, you're right, the conversion rate is really low. In a lot of cases with internet leads, the national average conversion rate is 2 to 3%. That means for every 100 leads you generate, you might have 2 to 3 closings over time. That's not in the next month. That's not in the next quarter. That might be in the next year or 18 months. So why would you ever invest in online lead gen? And the reality is the answer is in the math. And this is why it's important to track these numbers and track these things like cost per lead and cost per conversion. Let me break down some basic math for online lead gen. Let's say you want to do Facebook advertising and you're able to generate leads at $10 per lead. Either you're able to or you have a company that's able to. If you can generate 100 leads at $10 per lead, that means your total cost for that advertising is going to be about $1,000. If we look at the average conversion rate, if we can convert 2 to 3% on those, and if you have better follow-up systems, you can usually convert more over time. But if you can just convert 2 to 3%, that means out of those 100 leads, 2 or 3 turn into closings in the next year or 18 months. That means for $1,000, you've generated 2 or 3 additional closings. And if we look at our cost per conversion, when we do that math, so $1,000 divided by those 2 or 3 closings, you're spending between $330 per closing to $500 per closing, depending on if you close 2 or 3. So then now you get to ask yourself, is it worth $500 for a closing? Would you trade $500 to have a new home close that you represented the buyer or the seller? And again, there's a lot of factors. Maybe your market's got a lower price range, something along those lines. But if the answer to that question is yes, then you might want to look at online lead generation because you can do those numbers pretty predictably over the long term, as long as you have commitment to not only generating those leads, but also in commitment to following up with them. Now, some of you guys might be saying, Jeff, I'm brand new. I don't have the money to spend and generate 100 internet leads. I can only generate 10 or 20. Or you might be saying, Jeff, I really don't think I'm willing to spend the time to generate 100 internet leads and follow up with them for the next year to only have 2 or 3 closings. In that case, if you have some hesitation on either one of those, then maybe internet lead generation just isn't for you. Or maybe you need to look at internet lead generation tactics that can generate you some more free leads that don't have a huge cost. Or maybe you need to focus on some marketing or lead generation techniques that have higher conversion rates or that you enjoy the follow-up more, like your database or your sphere of influence. Okay, guys, that was the basic math behind online lead generation. If you're looking at Facebook ads or Google ads as a real estate agent, I hope that was helpful. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, give it the thumbs up if you enjoyed this content. Also, make sure you take a look at the description. We've got a ton of links to goodies like our new Facebook group in that description. Thanks, guys. I'll catch you next time.